Were prehistoric humans hunters or just brilliant scavengers? For centuries, the dominant image of early humans has been that of the fearless hunter. The story often goes like this: muscular, sharp-eyed men armed with spears and primitive tools roamed the wild landscapes of Africa, stalking giant prey, working together to bring down mammoths, buffalo, or even saber-toothed predators. It's a compelling image, one that fits neatly into a narrative of progress, power, and control over nature. But what if that picture isn't quite accurate? In recent years, a growing body of archaeological evidence and evolutionary research has suggested a different story. One that positions our early ancestors not just as hunters, but also as highly intelligent scavengers. Rather than risking their lives chasing dangerous animals with crude weapons, prehistoric humans may have often waited for nature to do the hard work. Once a lion or saber-toothed cat made a kill, our ancestors would move in to harvest what was left behind. This shift in perspective isn't just academic, it reshapes how we think about the development of intelligence, culture, and survival. It suggests that what made humans so successful wasn't brute strength or aggression. It was timing, strategy, and the ability to observe, adapt, and cooperate. A new kind of survivor. Let's take a closer look at what scavenging really meant in the prehistoric world. First, it required awareness. Early humans had to know when and where predators were active, what kind of kills they made, and how to avoid becoming prey themselves. They likely observed animal behavior closely, moving through the environment with caution and purpose. Once a kill site was found, the danger wasn't over. Predators often returned to their meals, and scavengers could be attacked if they got too close. Early humans may have worked in groups to distract or outnumber other scavengers like hyenas or vultures. They used stone tools, some sharpened, others crude, to break open bones, access the marrow, and remove flesh that the primary predator didn't bother with, like the brain or connective tissue near the joints. To us today, this may sound like second-hand dining, but in evolutionary terms, it was a masterstroke. Brains and bone marrow are incredibly rich in fat and calories, more so than many cuts of meat. And for a species in the process of developing larger brains, those nutrients were invaluable. The fossil evidence. Archaeological digs in East Africa have uncovered signs that support this theory. In ancient butchering sites, bones from large animals show consistent patterns of tool marks, not on the thighs or meaty ribs, but on the skulls, feet, and joints. These are the parts predators usually leave behind, and yet they seem to have been the focus of early human activity. In some locations, numerous animal skulls have been found with chisel-like fractures near the base, where the brain sits. This suggests a repeated, deliberate effort to access the brain for food. These were not isolated events, they were patterns across regions and time periods. Even more fascinating is the discovery of long-distance transport. At several sites, scientists found that early humans didn't just eat on the spot, they carried animal parts, especially skulls and bones, back to central locations. This implies not just scavenging, but planning and cooperation. It suggests early humans were already forming social structures around food sharing and group survival. Fueling evolution. Why does scavenging matter? Because it may help explain one of the most important transitions in human evolution: the growth of the brain. Our brains are massive energy consumers. They take up about 2% of our body mass, but consume roughly 20% of our daily calories. To support this, our ancestors needed access to dense, high-calorie food sources. Cooked meat eventually became one of them, but long before fire was mastered, animal fat may have played a starring role. This idea ties into the expensive tissue hypothesis, which argues that in order for the human brain to grow, our digestive system had to shrink. The gut, like the brain, is calorie-hungry. So by adopting a more energy-rich diet made possible through scavenging, early humans could afford to downsize their intestines and upscale their cognitive abilities. In short, eating leftover fat and brains may have literally helped us become more intelligent, not just passive feeders. Now, to be clear, scavenging doesn't mean our ancestors were passive or weak. Quite the opposite. It required intelligence, teamwork, and courage. After all, competing with other animals including powerful predators for access to a kill was risky. It's not like the hyenas politely stepped aside. Moreover, scavenging doesn't exclude hunting entirely. Evidence shows that early humans did sometimes hunt, particularly smaller or weaker prey. They used ambush strategies, primitive weapons, and their growing group coordination to secure food. But it's likely that full-blown big-game hunting became common only later, as tools improved and fire became widespread. Scavenging may have been the starting point, a clever shortcut that gave humanity the boost it needed to evolve, before turning toward more proactive food-gathering techniques. The rise of cooperation. Perhaps one of the most profound implications of the scavenger theory is what it says about early human relationships. Gathering food from carcasses isn't a solo act. It often required group effort, one individual standing guard while another worked with tools, others helping carry bones back to camp. This kind of collaboration may have laid the groundwork for community life, shared responsibility, and even early forms of language. Over time, those small acts of cooperation evolved into complex social behaviors, teaching, storytelling, ritual, and eventually, civilization itself. Rethinking the myth of the hunter. The romantic image of prehistoric man as a noble hunter has its roots in art, literature, and outdated science. But the truth, as usual, is more complicated and more interesting. Our ancestors weren't just fighters. They were thinkers, planners, and survivors. They didn't need to dominate the food chain by brute force. They did it by learning from nature, using the environment to their advantage, and sticking together. So next time you imagine life in the Stone Age, think beyond the spear. Think of sharp eyes scanning the horizon, of quiet footsteps through the brush, of a group waiting patiently for the moment to strike, not to kill, but to collect. Because perhaps the real beginning of humanity wasn't marked by a hunt but by the wisdom to let others hunt first.
The story of human evolution isn't just about strength or conquest. It's a testament to intelligence, adaptability, and cooperation. Rather than bold, spear-wielding warriors, our ancestors may have survived and thrived by observing, waiting, and seizing every opportunity
the environment offered.
From the discarded bones of predator kills, they extracted vital sources of fat and energy fuel that helped nourish a growing brain. That brain would eventually give rise to language, tools, culture, and the foundations of civilization
itself.
They shared food, worked together, and gradually built the earliest forms of human society. It was this cleverness, flexibility, and ability to make the most of small opportunities that helped early humans rise to the top of the evolutionary ladder. In the end, survival wasn't about who was strongest, but about who could adapt, think, and cooperate most wisely.